Phenomenal Disabilities, a docu-series and podcast by Chalanda Trilo. Today's guest is Susan Scheller. She's an advocate, mother of a disabled child, songwriter, singer, poet, and many more. So stay tuned. Well, hello. Welcome to Phenomenal Disabilities with Trilo, a podcast brand for disability inclusion and awareness. Welcome, listeners. But before I start my show, just a quick reminder to our listeners to follow us and leave a review. Well, hello there, everyone. This is Trilo from Phenomenal Disabilities. Today on our show, we have our guest, which is Susan Scheller. She's a mom and a singer and also a work professional. She does so many other things in the world, which she'll be discussing on our show. But she wants to be able to, honestly, I'm actually have her on the show to be able to discuss about many topics surrounding her son and herself within the disability community. So I'm going to take it away, Susan. Say hello to the world.
Greetings. Shalom.
Before I start to show off, I'm going to describe myself for my low vision guest. I am wearing a colorful hair wrap, and I have I'll say a light blue scarf around my neck, draped around my neck, and I have a green blouse, white tank top, and some, behind me, I have a neon purples and light blue with Phenomenal Disability behind me. And I'm handing it off to you to describe yourself, Susan.
There are many words, so I have to pick a few. I'm wearing a red shirt and some Native American beads that have little purple birds on them. I have soft purple glasses on and dark hair.
There you go. All right. You look beautiful. I wanted to start off by, having you tell everyone, what do you do besides what I've already introduced to your career? Can you kind of tell the world about yourself a little bit more than what I've already explained?
All right. Well, let's see. I kind of started off as a singer, songwriter, and singing a lot of local and indie music. And done a lot of projects surrounding autism. I called it Autism. There you go. And had some of my music in a couple of documentaries. One is Normal People Scare Me by Carrie Bowers and Taylor Cross about autism. And then Autism and Arts by Joanne Lara. And my son Julian is featured in both of them. And in recent years, of course, through the pandemic, just been a parent. And my son, although he has autism, he has a lot of other comorbidities, which I'm sure many of you parents can relate to or soon will. One of them is bipolar. The other one is he was born with a very rare pain disorder. He had to have a surgery when he was younger. And the pain from the surgery never went away. And they didn't believe us for a really long time. And we finally videotaped him. And they said, get him in here tomorrow. And they did exploratory surgery and found nothing.
Right.
And he was about 2.5, 3 years old. And I said, well, my son's kind of being diagnosed on this autism thing. And the surgeon hung his head and he said, oh, this only happens to my autistic patients. Now, I'm not saying that all autistic people have a pain disorder, but they do have atypical neurologies and some more than others.
Right.
So it's been a lifelong journey with this disorder. And of course, all of the stress kind of turned into MS. And now it's kind of full bloomed into complex regional pain syndrome, which you may see an orange ribbon for. And it is a hideous condition that basically beats the crap out of your body until you die. There's really no way around it. And you have to fight for people to have the awareness. And it's hard to get the proper medications and the medical treatment from the insurance companies, pretty much until you're in a situation where it's kind of hard to.
Right. Now, and I know you mentioned about you had some recent experience or numerous of them with your son at the hospital where they weren't treating him fairly. Can you kind of give the audience your story about that?
Well, recently we were at UCLA for, I think, about 15 days. You know, when you do this long term, your memory and your sense of time kind of goes away because you're really just focusing on what's in front of you and the main facts. And the stress is enormous, and you lose little bits of your functioning from burnout or PTSD or whatever.
Right.
So he had gone in for a terrible pain flare, to which he was getting ketamine, because we finally moved ahead in that portion of the journey where they actually understand what he needs. But meanwhile, the medication he usually takes to keep the pain of the surgery he had when he was younger under control was not working. And they were not managing that pain. And when we saw his outpatient pain doctor, I said to them, "What are you going to do next time?" She said, "Well, unless, someone's basically been cut open, they're not going to do any kind of anesthetic pain relief." I mean, he was getting morphine, he was getting ketamine drip, and that's heavy stuff. But he needed something like a nerve block, And they said, "Well, we don't do that unless it's this or that." I said, "Listen to me. You need to do better. This is UCLA. You need to make a policy for people with neurodiverse backgrounds and neurologies. Basically, my son is an alien, and you need to do something for him more than this.
Mm-hmm.
It's unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
It's driving his blood pressure way up. He's suffering." I mean, finally, we just left after, a portion of the situation was better. And it's about advocacy and creating policy. They should next time give him a nerve block.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if he doesn't have a cut open operation. He has pain from one that he had from 20 years ago, and it still counts. And it's autism related.
Right.
I mean, some people may have it who don't have autism, but in this case, that was sort of how it was identified to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we had a big discussion about that, and I plan to do more with that. And I just want to shout out to the parents of children who have medical issues and also have autism. If you are in a situation in the hospital and you are not getting what you need, you go to the charge nurse. If you're not getting what you need, you call the hospital administrator. If you can, go over patient relations. I mean, you're not going to get help until you get help.
Right.
And it's a painful, difficult, upsetting journey. And it's traumatizing. And you just go to the top and you just keep telling them what you need and what they need to do. And hopefully that will help facilitate a better situation. And that could look like being put in a quiet area of the hospital, not having to sit out in the hallway if you're in the emergency room because your kid needs less sensory input. So they put him in his own room. And then, well, we save that for so-and-so patients. Well, guess what? Move over. We have neurodiverse people here who are not like other people that have to get their needs met or they get worse.
Right, right.
So that's my advice for that.
I mean, honestly, it's sad that we have to continue this whole process of self-advocating for ourselves, especially with all the ADA laws in the United States. And you would think that, so many people be up to date with all the laws and how to, and it's still an ongoing process.
Yeah, it's a lot of information and it's a lot of opinions. It's a lot of everything.
Yeah, you have everyone who's got their, this and that and their political whatever, and you kind of look, you don't understand in my shoes as a disabled person, so don't, spit out whatever your nonsense is because you never walk the same walk as I have or anyone else.
Well, God forbid somebody parks in a handicap spot. My son will take a photo of their license plate and he will send it to the city and they will get fined.
Yeah.
he will not take any mess about being walked over. He's 21 now. And I'm so proud of him because in a lot of ways he can really advocate for himself. And he spends time helping others understand how to navigate getting Social Security and disability, finding housing, how to fill out the applications, what are some of the key phrases that you need to use to get them to recognize you and recognize your needs. And he's learned what he's had to live,
Right.
and proud of him for that. And
Right.
people very often misunderstand him because in some ways he's so high functioning, and in some ways he's really, really not. And that's welcome to autism.
Yeah. Can you kind of tell the world about, I know you mentioned about his anxiety, that's triggered from, a lot of these, from what you just discussed, like the hospital, and any other, just give some examples so the world can understand, because a lot of people don't really understand who are not within the disability community itself, don't really understand how to, be more mindful of this and recognize these patterns and how to, approach it differently.
Yes. Unfortunately, all the fabulous notes I wrote yesterday are not with me right now. My mind right now is, what the heck did I say? But just give me a moment to pause.
Yeah. We can go back to that one. I mean, we can always go back to go to some other questions. I know you mentioned that Julian has a lot of a supportive friend a support network, which is really important for anybody to have. It's big or small. Can you kind of explain to the world about his life, with his friends and stuff,
Mr. Facebook, yes. Well, what I would like to share is how valuable it is that he participates in groups on Facebook. He meets strangers. Let me say it differently. He meets fellow autistic people from all over the world, and they offer him advice. And they do this cute little thing where they send each other $10. It's just so cute, like to help, And I don't mean lots and lots of money. I just mean they help each other in a little ways.
And very supportive. Yeah.
Other, but figuring out what hospitals to go to. People come from across the country, like to go to Loma Linda, hospital. They have a lot of resources, and they're really in the forefront of a lot of information in terms of the medical community. I do want to circle back now that we're talking about it. When he was younger, he had to go into the neuropsych hospital to get medication because his anxiety was over the top. And that's what causes the behaviors, the licking, the perseverating, turning things on and off, and you're not able to really connect with them. Sometimes they're not able to really learn their ABCs unless they have something to help calm them down more than a weighted blanket or some sort of sensory input. But we were at the psychiatrist at UCLA, and they put him in a program called the ABC program, which was like an early autism program for young children. I don't think it's still happening right now.
Right.
They put him in there, and they tried to tell him what to do. Being autistic can sometimes come with oppositional defiant disorder. And they scared him in some way. They put him by himself, and they triggered his anxiety. Not only was he alone, but he was in a big vacuum of aloneness, and it freaked him out, and he went wild, and that popped him into the hospital.
Right.
into the hospital with our insurance.
Right.
Psychiatrist said, "Oh, I did that on purpose because they knew it was going to push his button and that they were going to put him in the hospital." And that's how he started to get the help that he needed.
Oh, wow.
A really wacky story. I know it sounds unconventional, but yeah, a lot of times it takes the back door to get the services that you need, a little creativity.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Now,
Got it.
when kids go into school with autism and they're in an autism program, there's various kinds of techniques that they use. And some of them want to trigger the kids on purpose because they want the behaviors to come out so they can work on the behaviors. I don't agree with that personally. I think it's very traumatizing and very distracting.
Mhm.
And it kind of becomes a stage.
Right.
You know, the fine line between supporting a student and just piling up the drama in school just becomes an unpleasant drama. He was in like a behavioral school for a little while, and I'm that was a mistake. I'm just sorry that happened. Anyway, a lot of the people who come into this world with autism do come in with tremendous anxiety. That can manifest in a lot of different ways and behaviors, as we've talked about.
Right.
And, just blanking out.
Okay, it's okay. I have a lot of friends who are in the autistic community, but they have different levels of autism. Um, um, but I learned how to navigate, with everyone, just being, cautious and not being too quick to, respond or just kind of really listen and pay really,
It's about having tools.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to circle back to the sensory blanket, which is like a weighted blanket when your child is stressed or an adult is stressed. A security object, like a little teddy bear or a fluffy animal, stuffed animal.
Right.
And
I like stuffed animals too.
Daddy, I was reading a newspaper.
Sorry, I had my Alexa talking. I need to unplug her. That was embarrassing.
Not important to say. But I know there was a study done where they were saying that even adults who are neurotypical benefit from having stuffed animals. And it's actually a very soothing thing. And more people than you would expect have these big teddy bears and fluffy toys at home. And when my son goes in the hospital, he'll have his little fluffy animals with him, or his, I call it his stuff.
Yeah.
And the nurses will attach to it and say, "Oh, I have that." And I'm thinking, "You do?" And then they're, "Oh, I love that character. I love that game." And I'm like, "Who are these people?" So it's not just, it's not just autistic people that are really attaching to things that soothe anxiety and that are external, So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I think that more schools are starting to provide more services for kids with autism and recognizing them earlier.
Right.
It kind of used to be that you'd have to fight for it, but now they kind of want you to have it because it's a smoother way of functioning instead of them not wanting to make room or alter a program. I think they're kind of more looking to lean into that now. Mm-hmm. So the next generation of kids that are above Julian, because he was born in 2002,
right.
They're enjoying a lot more benefits of being met by the community and embraced.
Right.
But we still have a long way to go.
Right.
Certain counties, like out in Palmdale, where I have some friends, they're not really getting the support in their IEP. And the teachers at this particular school are not they're not as nice. And they came from one community to another, and they're really struggling with the school board there. It's very important for parents to get an advocate. It was a mistake that I made in some areas.
Mm-hmm.
I luckily had a lot of close friends who were advocates with autism.
Mm-hmm.
So they helped him a lot and helped me a lot with his IEPs. But not everybody has a close friend who's an advocate. I think it's important to access agencies that offer advocacy. Mm. It's important to get a lawyer when you need to get a lawyer. I didn't get a lawyer when I needed to get a lawyer. And I think that looking back now, that was sort of a mistake. I was afraid to pull moves.
Right.
I thought I was pulling moves, but I wasn't. There's a whole set of moves above me that I wasn't even looking.
Right.
You know, being a single mother.
Is there like lawyers that actually work and help a lot of work with families that are low income and are there services out there? Pretty much what I say.
Well, we're here in, Southern California. I'm here in Conejo Valley, 1,000 Oaks, in the area. And we have a fantastic organization. They might even be national now. It's called Pause for Kids.
Okay.
Parent Advocacy, Unified School, something.
Okay. That's okay.
I don't know. Parenting of disability people with medical issues, you have burnout and you can't remember anything. But they are an organization, Pause for Kids, and they have it's a community of attorneys, doctors, accountants, various people making resources available to parents for more, and scholarships and things like that, and grants, and help pay for things. So there, if you look, you can find organizations. And it's funny, I was doing a gig in at a restaurant called Come On Now. Oh God. Wow, this is so embarrassing.
That's okay. Is it Sagebrush?
It's Crustacean, and they have a tank in the floor. It's really anyway, Shaka Khan was having her album release party there. Right. I was singing before the party. I didn't know it was Shaka Khan's family, but afterwards, they were chit-chatting with me, and we were talking about autism. And her sister, Shaka's sister, not Taka Boom, the other one, of course. Autism, you got to wing it. Organization around autism as well. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to bring that up because I know we both love Shaka Khan, but
yeah,
we do. But there's a lot of resources available if you just look and try to dig in the community. Networking is so important. Mm-hmm. If you're an autism mom, you need a network of other ladies to support you. They're the only people that really understand what you're going through. Mm-hmm. And I always say, if you're a man and you're dating a special needs mom, you got it made, because she's got a heart so big and caring, Mm-hmm. And then I also say, you should be really scared if you meet a special needs mom in the alley, because we're ready for you.
Oh yeah. I wanted to ask you in regards to, I know you've heard this same rumor before where they say so certain specific vaccines have caused the autism in kids, and I didn't know you kind of give the world your take on that. on that as well?
Okay, well, that's a big subject.
Yeah.
And as we may have noticed, I don't really attach to facts, but I'll tell you.
Yeah, right.
Or so, the idea of vaccines is that it's generations of vaccines that have affected our neurologies and our physiologies. Okay. This statement is not attached to my opinion. This statement is attached to what a psychiatrist told me at UCLA, Dr. Sutta. Of course, I know him because he was our doctor. And that's a funny story in general. He said, "How did you get this appointment?" And I said, "I begged." And he said, "No, really, how did you get this appointment? Because it's so impacted and it's very hard to get in."
Right.
And I begged. I called every day. Every day I called and spoke to his secretary. And finally, they pushed me in there. You gotta be really resilient and keep going and persistence to get the appointments that you're looking for.
Right.
Back to vaccines. He told me that UCLA did a study, and they took, because now that we have cell phones, we have more baby pictures to look at and more videos to look at.
Yeah.
Track a lot of information. You like that? Okay. So, so UCLA took two groups of people. They took people with no disabilities in their families, which I can't even imagine that now. And they took people who had children with disabilities, and they showed them baby videos. And the people who were able to identify, these are pre-vaccinated people, kids, infants. The people who identified, oh, there's something wrong with that one. And I don't mean to say wrong. I'm saying they're pointing at a difference, were the people who did not have disabilities in their family. And the people with disabilities in their family, it looked like a typical situation for them.
Right.
Trying to say is, you come in with your autism or your neurodiversities, and they're not caused by vaccines. Now, with that said, my opinion, I have known some adults who are autistic, and they're middle-aged, and they have their opinions, and I'll share them.
Yeah.
They feel that it's not necessarily that they're born with them. It's that their neurologies are so sensitive that the vaccine, they call it an insult to their system, which is causing damage.
Right.
I think it is a myriad of things. I think some people are born with it because they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Right. And usually the parent that's denying that their kid has autism has it. That's just a word on the street, folks, not a fact from me. I mean, there was a documentary, Normal People Scare Me. And there was a woman, and they were interviewing her about how her son was diagnosed. And then she said to the camera, cutting to the dialogue, she said, "And then they asked me, do you know anyone else in your family who's autistic?" And she said, "No." She said, "And then I realized they were talking about me." And she got diagnosed through the interview for the film, because she had no idea she was autistic.
Oh, really?
Kind of a cute, funny anecdote, but it is true. And so I'm talking a big ball of string here. So what I'm trying to say is, I think that autism runs in people's families. I think some people may be very deeply affected by vaccines. I think that that's what I think.
Yeah, I think people should be more informed before, I mean, I say this because I wanted you to be able to address this, because I hear this so often, and I'm like, I don't think that's true. And if it is, partially, I don't know. I don't think that, you guys can't, base that on every person.
Well, I think our bodies and our genes respond differently. But I think that, autism is probably a very old thing that's run through humanity. When you look at a lot of the inventions and all of the amazing things, I would say that those people are very spectrumy. And, there's a lot of talk about Albert Einstein being autistic. And a lot of scientific people tend to have that very, at the time they called it Asperger's, now they call it one thing. It's a spectrum, as you know. And the most extreme end of that is the autism. And then there's just maybe on the other end, much lighter, I call them behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that being shy is a behavior or being very brainiac is a behavior or having OCD is a behavior.
Right.
I think those traits are at the other end, where those be considered neurotypical.
Yeah.
But it's a spectrum. And the more fun it is, the more neurotypical you are. And the more, it's obviously, the more impaired you are.
Right.
A lot of autism, what I'm facing is autism with comorbidities. I'm facing autism with bipolar. I'm facing autism with illness, neurodiverse autoimmune pain, sensor. Back then they called it sensory pain. Now it's CRPS, folks. And the insurance company needs to wake up and recognize that. There's a lot of drama that goes on with our kids and county help. The county did not want to pay for a somatic healing program, outpatient program. My son has been in the hospital so many times, and every time he comes out, they say he needs a special type of program. And then, like, Medi-Cal never wants to pay for it. Finally, we got insurance, and he's getting so much better support. But had they helped him back in the day when he needed it, it wouldn't be this bad. And his lifespan is going to be extremely limited, cut short by this hideous condition, aggravated by stress.
Right.
And add compounded stress to an autistic person. Okay, they will become, okay, these aren't facts. This is my experience, okay?
Right.
Will become sicker and sicker.
Right.
And I don't know technically if genes mutate before you are born or while you're alive, but it seems like the genes are mutating forward and bringing the autism out. They're bringing all of the comorbid clusters out.
Right.
My son grew up with like 5 kids on the street. 4 of them are bipolar. How does that happen? How does that happen?
Yeah.
And I guess it's a very different rodeo when you're dealing with illness and autism related issues.
Right.
Because so there's a program, and it's called New Beginnings, and they are a fantastic program. They are in Camarillo, and they deal with somatic healing. And they were using, okay, let me say it right. I'm so sorry. I made all these notes.
That's okay.
My memory's damaged. So cortical re-education therapy. Okay. And they have him laying on his back, and he's like listening to classical music, and she's talking to him. I don't know if she's reciting a poem or she's kind of hypnotizing him. And then they have him doing body movements. Okay? They're re-educating his neurology, and it works. It brings his pain down.
No.
They don't want to pay for that. Really? They also have therapists there who have experience with complex regional pain syndrome autism, bipolar, all these things together make for a very bleak outlook.
Mhm.
We learned very early on for my son,
Right.
they're living through chemistry. He went on antidepressants when he was very little, but he had a lot of hideous surgeries,
Mhm.
and it helped him make it through. And he was also born very extremely, they call it PDD-NOS, pervasive developmental disorder, non otherwise specified, sort of a precursor to autism.
Okay.
And the inability to focus. We're not talking short attention, we're talking no attention, and a tremendous amount of anxiety,
Right.
And so medicating him really helped him. Wouldn't even be able to go to school without it.
Right.
So, fast forward 20 years later, he's on a lot of different medications. For physical things, because as you endure all of the pain and of course take medicines, you're creating more problems that have to be treated, so you're going down a list of medicines. But also, I wanted to say that there's something else that really is starting to bring more light. And I thought this a long time ago when he was little, which is, it's called mitochondrial failure. It's
Mhm.
mitochondrial. I don't know if they call it a condition or a disease, but the the mitochondria is in the cell, and it's responsible for like making the energy
Yeah.
and all that DDP or whatever you call it, DPT. Um,
You bring me back to biology class.
right. That's like when dinosaurs ruled the earth. Who could remember how burned away? Um, but it makes the body very weak and the breaking down all the time. And sometimes kids with autism also have mitochondrial failure and they don't even know it. So there's all kinds of things going wrong all the time. And we need to be, as a medical community, they need to be untangling these things and really addressing them. And I know he had mitochondrial failure. I could have taken him to a geneticist, you know, but I said to the doctor, doesn't it seem like he has mitochondrial failure? Oh, no. They're doctors. They know a lot, but they're also guessing.
Mhm, mhm.
I could have told you that. And now he has MS. I told him that 5 years ago that he had MS. Well, guess what? It doesn't come on like neurotypical MS. It's different for him, but now it's showing.
So how'd
Maybe,
you recognize that? I mean,
well, I don't want to give away a lot of personal information about my
oh, you don't
son.
have to. Yeah, it's just like
No,
a
no,
sign. Yeah, yeah. I
no,
got you.
no,
Got you.
relax. But
Yeah.
he was showing symptoms that all added up to MS.
Right.
And I sat with his doctor and I said, don't you think he has MS? And at the time they did an MRI and they didn't see the myelin sheaths being deteriorated. They could see that he was stressed.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we know so much about things, but there's more knowledge to be known about the things we know about. So they missed it as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And anyway, with autism, it makes it very difficult. And if the medical community could really see all of the comorbid clusters that come with autism, and they could really work on untangling all of the things that cross over that are hard to see. It's hard to tease out. Okay, your kid has a stomach ache and he has a migraine, and he's. I'm just creating symptoms, and he's got something else.
Right.
Maybe that's just all it is, and
Right.
it's not a disease. It's
Right.
complicated.
Yeah.
Which makes me have to be my own doctor a lot of times. And then I regulate my personality. Every time I meet a new team of doctors, I have to explain the whole frickin' situation. I have to explain the whole history. And then they send, these hospitals are learning hospitals, teaching hospitals. So they send the resident in, then they send the so-and-so in, and then they send the hospitalist in. And you've seen 4 people and they all ask you the same stupid question. Do I sound hostile? Yep. It's very draining. just kind of sharing what's go through.
Right.
But other people don't. And I don't want to call anybody. I talk to so many doctors all day.
Right.
But every once in a while, you find that magic doctor that gets it. And then you really start getting somewhere. And then the insurance company will give you a hard time. I probably have a hard time because I'm a single parent family. When you have a 2-person income, you might have private insurance through one job. Maybe the mom is staying home with the child, maybe not, but you have Medi-Cal because he's on the autism waiver. So he has Medi-Cal for, and now we have Blue Shield. So we got a little more services. I waited so long to do that. And my son says, why did you wait so long to do that? Well, I don't have the money for all that.
Yeah.
A little bit better, and it's one big expense after another. But that's one of the mistakes. I wish that I had figured out a way to get private insurance for him as well. We could have a lot healthier. He could have been a lot better.
Right.
We run into doctors that are angry. When we went to Loma Linda and they saw and read his notes, they were furious. They did not like the way the medical system has dealt with his situation, and it's tough. It's just tough. You don't know when you're in it.
Right.
And then the energy to be social and learn from other people. I have a small group of autism moms that I know, and some of them their kids have had cancer. Some of their kids have had other illnesses, really extreme illnesses,
right,
ongoing. But after that, I meet someone with autism who wants to talk about autism, not someone with autism, a parent. I want to run away.
Right.
Okay, But right now, that's all I'm doing. I'm just doing this. And I had to sort of reinvent myself because I couldn't get out to sing. My son got so sick. And then, of course, the pandemic, and you can't compromise their immune system,
Right.
So I started doing intuitive readings at home. And it does still bring me the same joy as singing, because singing, you may or may not know, it's a channel. And the same thing. So I'm really enjoying that when I have the opportunity to do so. So in terms of back to autism, there's a lot of medical stuff that goes with autism, just genetically. And the more stress we put on our kids, the worse they're going to get.
Right.
What scares me is when kids with autism start drinking alcohol. That scares me. I'm not sure why, but because it's an opportunity to self-medicate away the anxiety that they, and it just scares me. I'm not saying people with autism shouldn't drink. I'm just saying, I just worry that it could become a crutch or a bad behavior,
Well, I mean, I totally get what you're saying there, because even like myself, having anxiety and PTSD and so forth, and I could saw when I during my years where I wasn't sober, I saw the difference, and now since I'm sober, I can see the complete difference from, oh wow, the same as like with my relatives who had various disabilities like bipolar and so forth, and they start drinking, you start to see it.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
it escalates. And another thing, that parents may or may not know. I mean, we live with our kids, we know who they are, but there's a lot of sexual fluidity that comes. I've noticed. I'm not saying it's a fact, but being involved with, a couple of different documentaries and listening to some of the kids, there seems to be a lot of sexual fluidity that also comes through with autism. And, there has to be compassion and love, unconditional love for this generation of kids, for every generation of all, but, particularly people with autism. They're doing it their own way. And God bless them. God bless them.
Right.
What makes life interesting.
Well, I want to, tell you thank you for coming on the show and being able to be really open to your story about you and your son and how you are handling everything and still being a warrior. I call you a superwoman, you always been a superwoman to me, ever since I've known you for so many years. Gosh, since 19 years old. Oh my God. Now I'm 52. Like, wow.
You're a little photographer who shot the. I know what I was getting into.
I want to ask you one final question. And you can give me one sentence or two. I want you to kind of think about it. Can you tell the world what disability isn't to you?
What disability is not?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I usually flip it and say what it is, which is a superpower.
Mm-hmm.
What it isn't is anything to be ashamed of, anything to be denied because of. It isn't anything to. It's so hard to think backwards.
It's okay. It's okay. You said it perfectly.
Okay, I'm on my team. What disability is not? It's not a reason to quit. It's not a reason to not go after what you want. It's not a reason to be isolated. It's not a reason to give up. It's not a reason to judge yourself. And it's not a reason it's not a reason, here come the double negatives. It's not a reason to not participate. Got my Muppet head going. Yeah. So that's what I got to say. I will tell you this. When I look at my son, I want to say that his anxiety is his superpower. Mm-hmm. Every time he's really losing it, I say, just, try to relax and go through all the things that we go through. But I remind him, your anxiety is your superpower. Mm-hmm. It makes sure that he is saving money in the bank. The terror and fear that he feels about being vulnerable if anything happens to me causes him to learn about financial planning, and the fear that he is not going to get the help that he needs will force him to dig through. He calls the Mayo Clinic on the phone and he talks to them, or he'll pay the fee to talk to a doctor and get another opinion. His superpower keeps me moving. The anxiety that I'm not going to provide for him what he needs shoves me in the directions that I often don't want to go in. And it's just what we were talking about, anxiety, a while ago. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But so, yeah. Yeah. That's the story there.
Well, thank you again. Okay, listeners, I want to say thank you for participating and actually listening to the show. Susan, thank you so much for actually coming on the show and talking about your life and so forth. And until next time, this is Phenomenal Disabilities with Trilo. See ya. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and many more.